up? Hi, Doug Landis. Nice to meet you guys. It's good to be here. So we're going to go down the line here and introduce everybody. You guys can introduce yourself, name, title, company, and in particular, what I want to know right out the gate is, do you actually do coaching today? And if so, what part of the organization is driving that? So I'll start, just for shits and giggles. Doug Landis, I am a growth partner at Emergence Capital. Little context, yes, we're venture capitalists out in San Francisco. Little context, I've only been there about 10 months. I spent the last 20 years running enablement and productivity at Box, Salesforce, and Google, previous to jumping ship and joining the dark side, as everybody likes to say. It's not really true. This enablement and productivity space, I know very well. In fact, I'm also an advisor to LearnCore because we've been friends for, since you guys started. So anyway, that's me.
Hi. I'm Georgia Ortiz with Coupa out of San Francisco, and I run the Sales Enablement Program. We are embarking on our coaching specifically for managers. Our sales managers is where we're starting. We have a leadership program through the entire company. But the focus for coaching right now is really squarely going to be focused in 2018 for our sales managers. So we're pretty excited about embarking on that.
Cool. Good place to start.
I think so.
Good morning. Hi. My name is Julie Rhodes. I'm with Informatica. We are a cloud data management company based out of the Bay Area in Redwood City. That's not where I live, however. But I've been part of Informatica for 7 years, and I've been in the sales enablement space. So I'm part of the sales enablement team. We have a good-sized team, not nearly large enough to support some of the initiatives that are going on within the company right now. But I've been in an enablement function for since 97, which is kind of scary when I do the math on that. But anyway, we have had a variety of different coaching programs. Our company is in the process of going through a major transformation right now. And so with that, there's a lot of things that are changing and very disruptive. So we have coaching that even some of the people in sales enablement are offering, particularly for certain functions within the company. But we're really working on improving the coaching programs that our managers have to offer. So similar to what Georgia said, we're very focused on coaching the managers to be better coaches.
Hi, I'm Nicole Williams, and I'm from Jive Communications. We are a business voiceover IP company out of Orem, Utah. So technically, still in startup mode. I like to say we were started by a bunch of software developers, not salespeople. So we recently, when I started, I've been there about a year and a half now, is when we finally invested in training. So coaching, training is all very new at our company, and we just got new leadership. We just got a new CRO, we just got a new VP. So everything is changing right now. So we are going to have coaching and training on so many different levels changing, and it won't just be me driving it anymore. So I'm very excited about that.
I'm Taryn Rosada. I do talent development and learning for Condé Nast. I was also a previous LearnCore user at AOL for about 6 years, and we don't have a formal coaching program in place at the moment, but I'd say we've introduced coaching at Condé Nast in a concept to build out further through our product certification programs, and so I can talk a bit about that.
Nate Lindstrom, Lockton, we're a commercial insurance brokerage. I got about 7,000 associates worldwide. We've got 300 producers, we call them producers, for our sales professionals. I've been with the company about 6 years, Vice President of Operations, producer recruiting and development, really falls in my space. And I would say we've been doing coaching more formalized for about 9 years. And then we use a lot of external coaching, which you'll hear from Dan Lappin today. He's one of our sales coaches. So we put a whole comprehensive program around coaching. We use a lot of the functionality of LearnCore. We love the role plays, and happy to answer questions later in the panel on how we're using it. But it's been very effective in helping us coach up some of our producers.
I'm really excited to get a couple different industries up here, not just technology, right? Mary, all we hear is technology companies. So it sounds like a bunch of people, so we started to think about these to implement coaching programs. You guys have been doing this for a long time. Let's level set everybody and define it. When you guys talk about coaching, what do you mean by that? Because I think a lot of people have kind of a different idea as to what it might mean in your organization. So I'm really curious as to like just a level set what it actually means in your organizations. Anybody, feel free to jump in.
Well, I'll start.
Go for it.
In our organization and our group, we talked about this yesterday. We have a lot of young salespeople. We have a lot of people that were appointed as managers because they were a good salesperson, but they weren't taught how to be a manager or a leader. So coaching is really in the mind of that individual. And so when I came in, I did a lot of question asking to see how I could help them, to see how they were actually coaching, and it turns out a lot of them were not coaching. Most of them had not ever done a role play, and it was just not from the environment I came from, and which is why Hoover Court was so important for us to kind of start with. But a lot of the sales individuals that turned into managers, they wanted to just transform their people into what they had done, and found it wasn't that simple. And they didn't realize that you really actually have to change your coaching style to all the individuals you have. You can't just take a whole team and coach them all the same way. So that's one thing that I have focused on with a lot of the younger leaders that come in, is trying to teach them how to coach people on an individual basis, because that's something that just it was not happening. But they weren't taught; they were just appointed.
So what were they doing then, right? So if they weren't actually coaching, what were they?
So one thing we talked about yesterday a lot, and I think it was Georgia that brought it up, is deal inspection. So it's the term that she used, but they do that a lot at Jive also, is really helping the sales reps through their sale. And they believe that's coaching. But what they don't do is reinforce it. So they don't then say, okay, on your next sale, I want you to do what I just did. I want to see you do that. I want to see you put that into play. But they're thinking that coaching is actually them taking over the call, closing the sale, and saying, see, I did it. And then they're done. There's just no follow-up and reinforcement. So right now, that's pretty much what our coaching looks like at Jive, because we have a lot of our leaders going out all over the country to help close deals. We even have our CEO flying out to help close deals, just because our salespeople aren't 100% confident to do it on their own, because there's not that individual coaching that's happening to make them better.
Got it. So it sounds like coaching is not doing; it is actually guiding. It's asking questions. It's pulling the insight out of other people.
That's actually the question.
What's that?
The first thing in any program is defining what coaching is, and I think Julie's got a great graphic for that, where it's a spectrum. If you think about, I would say, mentor somewhere in the middle, coaching and managing is all the way over here. And managing is exactly what you're saying, when you're telling them, this is what I need you to do.
Right.
And then you've got the mentoring, where it's much more of a trust relationship, and you're able to kind of teach and tell and provide that guidance. And then you're the coach. If you're the coach, you should be asking questions to get your people to think differently, to how would you approach this situation if it were to come up again, because the idea is that we all, as sales enablement leaders, bring them through onboarding or training, but we know that those insights will only turn into true wisdom when they're applied in the field. And that's why coaching is so important, because we want to provide a fertile brain after training to give them back to the manager so that they can continue that growth. And so if they're not asking those questions to help develop, then our training gets forgotten, or it's just not as valuable.
Cool.
I actually couldn't agree more. So I think when we think of coaching, sometimes in our mind, we're going to coach them. We're going to coach them on this play. They're going to do it this way. Well, it's not telling them what to do, right? It's self-awareness. And so what we try to teach is a lot around self-awareness. What's your behavior style? You know, if you're a dominant personality and you meet with a dominant CFO or CEO, how's that conversation going to go, right? Help them understand better about we do a lot around personality. For us, it's more of a consultative sell, right? Even though it's insurance, like I want insurance, it's not. It's much more complicated than that. It's like communicating to the CFO, what's the impact to your balance sheet? What does this mean to your employees, right? If you make these changes. And so it is that mentorship, it is sales coaching, it is peer-to-peer, right? They're learning from each other. It's also, I mean, we're just rolling out a mentorship program right now. And I think that's going to be critical for our organization because producers want to learn from producers. So what we try to do is get more producers that really have honed their craft around what we call A best practices, and I'll talk about that more. But then they can go to these producers and say, this person's really great at time management. They can learn from them. But at the end of the day, I see coaching as building self-awareness, that they can then self-correct, that it's not sales. I'd say sales coaching is not sales management.
Good distinction. Where do you guys apply coaching across the organization? Where should you apply coaching across the organization? Is it around time management? Is it around presentation skills? Is it around deals? Like where specifically do you guys have coaching programs targeted?
So we have a variety, because coaching really covers a broad spectrum. And so when I first came into Informatica, I was actually hired to be a sales coach. It had nothing to do with LearnCore at the time, but it was very specific because what happened is people would hear the word coaching, they're like, oh, go to Julie. And I'm like, no, because the specific of what I was doing was really around deal strategy and account strategy. So I was trying to really come up with a framework to where the conversations could be shorter and crisper between manager and rep, or rep. We have a complicated sales model right now between rep and all the other people who help that rep in terms of securing that transaction or penetrating that account. And so relative to deal coaching, it was really coming up with a crisper way versus what I used to call once upon a time. And they would talk about the account of the deal from the beginning of the time. And it became a very long conversation that got told and retold and retold. So we put some frameworks in place to where we could really crisp that conversation and really distill it down to the relevant things around the opportunity to really drive a strategy to closure, or qualify out and go work on other types of opportunities that we had a better chance of winning. So that was a completely different type of coaching. We have really implemented LearnCore so far. We're still fairly new users. We started back in the spring timeframe, but we have about 850 users right now. And we started this really as a messaging platform. So with our transformation, we are changing our brand, we are changing our ownership, we've changed all our senior management, we are changing every business process in the world, in the company to support this transformation. And there's a lot of critical new messaging that's going out. So we're using LearnCore to get them to hear the message, master the message, and feel very confident in repeating that message back to customers. So that level of coaching is very different, where we're trying to get our managers to give the right type of feedback, because in some cases they don't even know how to give that feedback on what's good, what they're looking for, and that's really what we're working with the managers in on.
So coaching around deals, opportunities, and messaging. What else for everybody on the panel?
I introduced coaching through product certification, and I think something to consider when rolling out any type of coaching program is the culture piece. And I underestimated the culture that we have at Condé Nast and their ability to welcome the idea of a coaching program. And so at Condé Nast,
trying to say there was some resistance.
very much resistance in terms of they already think they know everything, but essentially it's brought in to help them transform from print to digital. But they're used to it's not okay to say you don't know something. And with product certification, we do foundational lessons in LearnCore, then we get to the classroom, and then we certify in LearnCore again through the Pitch IQ. And that idea of being filmed and then watching your people, everyone just felt very exposed. And so it's not only introducing sort of the process and the method through which we want to coach, it's also the communication around the entire plan and being sensitive to, do we have a learning and development culture, and how is this program going to succeed, considering some of those things.
Nate, you've been coaching for a long time. How did you get started?
So I would say, I mentioned the 8 best practices, and we looked at our top 50 producers at Lockton. I guess one thing I'll say about our producers, they're very good. Our average producer is $3 million. They do about $500,000 of new business per year. So we tend to get very strong sales professionals in our organization. And some of our top 50 producers, they're very, very good. So what we did is we took interviews from them and we boiled it down into major things that we wanted all the other producers to emulate. And that's what we call it. That's how I was born, was the 8 best practices. And so it's time management, sales qualification development, building a competitive differentiation. So that became kind of the foundation of the things that we coach to. So you think about presentation skills, you think about one of the biggest things we coach on, and you'll hear from Dan today, is changing the conversation standard. Right? There's so many times in sales, and you guys, I'm sure, have had somebody call on you like, hey, I got a meeting. Okay, let's get to the next meeting. Okay, let's go to lunch. Like, what value are you bringing to this conversation? And so what we really need to do is get our producers to connect to that so that they're bringing value and impact to the customer. And it's easy to say, hey, I got a meeting with the CFO, and they're like, hey, they're ready to switch. It's like, guys, take a step back. Why did they even call you? What is their business objective? Why is there something? There must be something that they're unhappy with that they took that meeting, right? So it's really that conversation standard. And I think it was said earlier, it's businesses definitely moving more and more towards that consultative sale. So conversation standard would be a big one that we're coaching on right now, especially with all of our new producers coming in. We hire about 50 producers a year. So we have to get them ramped up. We need to get them to learn the 8 best practices. So LearnCore has been very good for us in terms of teaching the 8 best practices and then coaching to it. So
I think it's a really important point is coaching. You can literally coach on a lot of different areas, right? You mentioned time management, presentation skills, communication skills, messaging, opportunities, deals. You can even coach on how to use your CRM or how to use LearnCore. A lot of coaching opportunities. I think one of the challenges for creating a coaching program is actually getting started, right? One is getting cultural buy-in, right? Understanding leadership. So how did you guys all get started in their coaching plans? You guys are just now starting to roll this out. So how do you build a coaching plan?
I think it starts with the need identification, right? So obviously there has to be an issue that you can point to.
There's always issues.
Exactly.
In every one of our companies, there's always issues.
Exactly. But much as we train our sales reps, where's your value? Your value needs to be linked to an executive or the corporate goals, right? So it's a strategic initiative or goal that is not being met, or potentially you're going to miss if you don't do this. And so for us in coaching, we know that what got us here isn't going to get us where we want to be. And where all the focus in the past has been on, in our case, even sales reps, like most companies, we forget about our sales managers. And so we could spend all of our time training reps or individuals, but if we can make just a small change at that management level, just that little bit of a change, all of a sudden, you're going to be able to multiply your effort. So for us, it really came down to, we know where we want to be, we know what our growth potential is, and it's absolutely an execution play for Coupa. Like everything is lined up for our tremendous success, so it's an execution play. So then looking at our personal situation and saying, okay, what do we have that we can leverage, right, without adding anything necessarily new? And that, at least for us, is the coaching. Because any good team, you can take average players, but if you've got an amazing coach, that can take those people and really bring them to the next level, you're going to have an all-star team. So for us, at least, it was identifying that initial need and absolutely having executive buy-in. Because if you don't have executive buy-in, at least we talked a lot about this yesterday, for sales, sales managers have a really tough job. And at the end of the day, they can't say, hey, I spent a good 40% of my time coaching this month. I know I didn't make my number, but boy, no. So the metrics and their need to deliver is always going to drive any coaching initiative. So you got to have that executive buy-in to give them a break, so that they can begin to build that muscle memory that maybe they had at some point. So it's Mr. Russ was about that.
Who else?
To George's point, starting with the managers is key, and so in building out a coaching program at AOL, I can speak to the experience there. We sort of defined what is AOL's sales strategy and methodology, and what are the key behaviors that we want to train the entire team around, and then build training based on those pillars. But the training started with managers, so managers had their own training on how to coach around the pillars that we rolled out and then trained the sales team on. So it's sort of, we hid the idea of coaching within the sales strategy program.
So I know at Jive we literally didn't have the buy-in from the top down especially when we first started with LearnCore. So it really was my team trying to drive the initiative. So now with the new leadership that we have, they are 100% behind training, which is amazing. They come from a lot of different backgrounds where training is not optional, which unfortunately at Jive for the last year it has been optional. So it's been me doing a lot of cheerleading, but getting the executives bought into the fact that it is important, and how can you be out there selling and pitching our products if you haven't even been trained on it? And unfortunately that was the case with about 70% of our sales staff were 60% or more behind on their product trainings. And we had a lot of them doing pitch IQs that would sit and not be scored for 4 or 5 months at a time. And so, I would go in and I would see them and I would reach out to the manager, and, they're out there helping them close deals, so they don't see a problem. Because if the deal gets closed, they think everything's okay. So they haven't identified. But now with the new leadership, they have identified that there's a problem, and they're saying, these sales managers shouldn't have to go out on every deal. We should have confidence that our salespeople can close the sale themselves. So instilling a lot of confidence is one place where we have to begin, is giving the salespeople that confidence that they don't need the manager to ride shotgun every single time. They don't need somebody to help them close the sale. They should be able to do that on their own, and we should be able to give them the tools, but the managers have to have the tools first.
The thing I would say is we had the fortunate, of executive buy-in for 9 plus years, so we didn't have to really work that hard at that. But the one thing that we didn't have, and I think it was more recently, is now that we've been doing it for so long, we have outcomes, and that just makes it super easy to sell, because the lifetime value of an average producer is $75 million. Our 2 metrics are acceleration and retention. And not every salesperson is going to make it, but if we can save one more, it's potentially $75 million. The business impact is huge, and we've had double-digit growth in an industry where the largest players grow at 2 to 3%. We've had double-digit growth for 50 years. So our wildly important goal is double-digit growth, and that is directly tied to our producer hiring and development. And then if we bring in a whole class of, say, 50 producers, and then take long for that class to be at $50 million. So we have the impact now.
Cool. I think that's a perfect transition to this next topic, which is, I think we all believe that coaching is important. We need to do it. It's important to build a plan, get senior management support, because otherwise you're screwed. But how do you measure it? Like, coaching is one of those nebulous things. It's like we do it all the time on a variety of topics. How do you measure if it's actually working? If I were the CEO of the company, you want to roll out a coaching program, really cool, I get it. How do we know if it's going to work? Curious your thoughts.
Well, and this leads a little bit back to the previous topic. One thing that we found was very insightful in our experience with LearnCore was, well, first of all, before we got the commitment to roll this out to a large number of users, our manager, Jackie, was anxious to do it. I'm like, wait. And part of that was making sure that we had the buy-in from the executive team to support a coaching culture. Because when I look at LearnCore, it's not just about the learning, it's about the feedback. And both sides of the coin are critically important. But, and like I said, we rolled this out to about 750 in the July timeframe. And it's been very insightful from a measurement on just looking at how the managers are doing. So to somebody who mentioned that, somebody submitted a pitch and, months later, they still haven't been scored. That is just a tragedy. And we're seeing some of that already. So we're gaining a lot of insights into the managers and how they perform as a coach. And even looking at the quality of the feedback that they give, we've identified gaps in our management team that will help us drive a manager program going forward. So a metric that we weren't really anticipating that has been huge for us is to do the analytics just even on the manager feedback.
Right, totally. One little side note, an idea. If you're going to roll out LearnCore and have people provide feedback, which of course is critical, try reallocating the people to different managers. Because as a frontline sales manager, if you tell me to go certify all of my team and actually go give feedback, guess what? They're all going to get great scores, right? Because I don't have time. Because the frontline sales manager job is the hardest job in an entire organization. It's so freaking taxing. And so to make them go and judge and evaluate your whole team, they're going to take the easy way out. So a better idea, or another idea, is to take somebody else's team and swap them and make them go do judge and evaluate somebody else's team.
I have a lot of trust in the organization to do that.
Of course. Or great leadership.
Exactly. What I would say with metrics, which are so important, particularly around coaching and in the sales enablement function, where there isn't a great love for the touchy-feely aspects of life. So the idea should be, we're looking at a metric, for example, retention, which is huge, right? Reducing the number, your regrettable turnover. And I think there are enough studies that show that people leave because normally of their best manager, their manager,
right.
Their direct manager. Even if the company's great. Exactly. And so you can imagine that if you were to even do a baseline survey of, in our case, your sales folks, and have them rate their current level of coaching, right? Where are they? And we know that there's an absolute disconnect between the coaching that a person perceives they're receiving versus what the manager believes they are getting. And it's usually completely off, where a manager thinks they're coaching, 80%, and individuals like 80-20% at best. So if you start with that metric first, maybe on a scale of 1 to 5, you keep it super simple, and you just ask the question, on a scale, how often are you coached? What is the quality of the coaching? And then after the program, you ask the same question, maybe 3 months later. Because even though that at face value seems like a soft metric, the reality is the perception of those individuals that are being coached, if that metric goes up, then you should also in 6 months or 9 months be able to track your retention. And also on exit interviews. Maybe you make that part of, the questions that people are asked on the exit interview. If you start to see a gauge, that's a simple metric if you don't want to overcomplicate things.
Yeah, I think, that ROI is one of the hardest things to prove on training, as I'm sure all of you in this room know. And there's many ways to do it, but I think if you also don't have accountability, and that is an issue in many cases, I'm sure, you have to drive accountability in order to be able to measure coaching. Because if coaching isn't actually happening, how can I measure that the program's a success? And so something that we did, Condé Nast isn't ready for it, but something that we did at AOL was we had MBOs, so managed business objectives, and both managers and sellers had a learning MBO. And it meant something different at both levels, but they were measured and it was part of their pay. They got a score on their learning MBO, and if they didn't get a 3, they weren't paid out in full, right? And so it seems harsh, and it took us a while to get to that point to be able to introduce something like that, but that's what helped us to ensure accountability and participation in the programs that we were rolling out in order to eventually be be able to measure the results.
And I was just
As we all know, salespeople, money talks, right? That's right, I love that.
That's right. So I just added the metrics part. So now that we've been running this for 9 years more formally, and you say it's hard to measure ROI, it was. I mean, it racked my brain for several years to figure out how we're going to measure this thing. And we're now that we've seen the numbers, it's like, wow. So I'll give you an example. We hire 3 types of producers: B2B, an insurance, or an insurance with book. Insurance with book means they came from the brokerage business, they sold before. We're like, oh, okay, I'll make it. No, that's not true. Those that have insurance skills but haven't sold before, then that's another way we look at it. And then B2B is I have sold, but I don't know insurance. About 50% retention is in the industry. Half of them make it, half of them don't. Which is crazy, right? I mean, it's like, God, it's half, 50% make it. Well, what we did was we looked at everybody that went through the programs, which were optional then. And it was like, you want to go? Go? No, no. So we looked at 9 years of data. And we said everybody that went through them more on the insurance type, they had that, but they didn't have the sales skills. It was double the retention. It was 40 versus 80. So the ROI is just through the roof. And so what we're doing is now we're having so much success with it that people want to come. It's no longer, oh, God, I gotta go to this thing for 9 months. Now it's like, how do I get in? And so that's been very successful for us. And I think it's continuing to tweak the program, learn what worked, learn what didn't work, make it better and better. Ask, let them tell you, and listen, right, to their feedback, because I promise you it will get better with their feedback. I listen intently on what they say that can make the program better. So,
One thing I was just going to add is that there's a couple different things that we've done at Jive. So literally just 1 week ago, we were able to get a CRO to sign off on tying the learning to their MBOs, which will be amazing for us once it actually gets implemented. But one thing we started doing just to try to measure what was happening after the salespeople were leaving our team. So they literally only get 5 days with our team, and then on their 6th day, they go to their team and they're expected to start performing. The bulk of our staff is remote, so a lot of them fly in, they get a lot of information dumped, and then they're expected to perform. So we have tried to, now we constantly are switching things up, so we have them do learn more before they come out, do some pitch IQs when they're on site so we can get them feeling comfortable. And then we have them do more after they leave. But one thing that we started doing is a lot more surveys. So the surveys have helped us, it gives them kind of an open forum to talk about what they feel like they're missing. So we are very strategic in the questions that we ask. We ask things about how many one-on-ones have you had with your manager? What kind of coaching did they give you? Have they helped you through a demo? Have they helped you close a sale? I mean, we ask very strategic questions. So, and we found that they are very open in those surveys. We do both LearnCore surveys and live surveys, so that they can actually just kind of have that open forum to talk. But those have also been very effective way to measure, because we can give that feedback back to their manager and say, you know, so-and-so says that they still have not ran their own demo. So how can we get that accomplished, you know, in the next 2 weeks? So those are a couple things that we've implemented.
Sounds to me like an important component to coaching is feedback, right? Hugely important. One other piece on this, and we'll wrap, is I think it's important, regardless of what you focus on for a coaching program, whether it's deals support, whether it's messaging, positioning, whatever it may be, it's really, really important to pick a single metric and use that as your baseline for that program. So you're doing time management, what's your metric going to be? Well, how much time are your reps before the coaching program spending on the phone versus afterwards? If it's on deals, it's like, okay, what are we expecting out of our deals after this program versus where they are now? It's really, really important just to be clear about what that one metric is, or maybe two in some cases, that you feel like you can adjust and you can measure by instituting a coaching program. I think we all get that it's important, but clearly we got to have the right level of support at the top, and you need to be really thoughtful in terms of how you roll it out. You guys have been awesome. Give it up for our panel, please.